Welcome back, crafty friends. It's Alicia of the Call Me Crafty Al YouTube channel. I know it's been a while since I've been here, and the end of the school year was crazy, and then I had my mom was in town for a couple things, and the last week and a half I've been trying to clean out my craft area so I could come back and start being creative, and it is finally good enough to use. I can get around. I do have actually a work surface now that I can use, and I had went out today to Michael's to look at the new hot buy pads because they're 70% off, and I wanted to see if I liked any of them well enough to get them. I decided, I kind of liked probably 2 of them, but you know what? I have more paper than I am ever going to be able to use, so I did not buy them. But when I was in just the regular paper aisle, these 3 pieces of paper caught my eye. And these are some of the specialty papers. I believe they're $1.99 per sheet originally. They were a little bit off today. I'm going to say maybe 20%, which I didn't know. I was actually willing to pay full price for these. I had 150% off coupon. But I love them so much, and this one here with the little 3x4 cards caught my eye first. I liked all of the sayings, and I liked the gold foiling, and I thought that could probably make some nice simple cards because the sentiment's already there. Some of them have decoration, and these other 2 papers, they were beside this one, so I thought that those would all go nicely together, so I picked those up. And what I thought I would do today while you're here with me is make some quick and easy cards with these. All I'm going to be using that I know of right now will be these 3 pieces of patterned paper, as well as some cardstock for the bases and for matting. But I plan on getting 12 cards from these 3 pieces of paper plus some card blanks. So let's see if I can do that. The first thing I'm going to do is cut this sheet into the 3x4 cards, and then I'm going to cut each of the pattern papers into 4 by 5¼ inch pieces of paper, and then I will put them together and kind of see how each card works best with the pattern behind it. So let's get started. Now, as I get ready to cut the cards down smaller, I've actually not been using the grid for measurements. I've been using the lines between the cards, so I might have to do some adjusting later to get them to 3x4, or my mats might be slightly different. The reason that I'm cutting the pattern papers to 4 by 5¼ is because my card base itself will be folded to 4¼ by 5½. So this way I have just a little border all the way around the pattern paper on the card front. And cutting it to 4 inches wide also allows me to be able to get 6 pieces from each of the pattern papers. For now, all of my cutting is done. What I'm going to do is in my stash, I'm going to try to find a pink that nicely matches the sentiment and the background in this one. And I'll match some of those in pink. And then my plan for the other ones is either to use my cardstock that is just a little off-white. It's not an ivory and it's not white because that's what these cards are in the background, or I might use a gray color. And because of the size of these, I can probably find some scraps to use. So this is going to be a great way to use up some scraps you might have. Now this pink is not perfect for this card, but it's gonna be close enough because I will not have it matting the pink. I will have it matting a different colored card. Okay, now that I have my matting cardstocks picked out, what I'm going to do is go through and put each of the 3x4 cards with a background paper, and then I will decide which mat I will be using, which color cardstock mat I will be using. Now, right now my plan is, if it is only a sentiment, I think I'm going to try to use the bigger floral background. Alright, but if the sentiment has some of those flowers already, then I'm going to use this just single color with the gold background. Again, that's my plan. I don't know how it's going to end up with how many cards I have. So let's go ahead and get this going. Okay, right here I already have an exception. This is only a sentiment, but because the card background is the same as the gray here, I am going to put this on one of these over here. I might end up changing it. We'll see later on. Now I am down to 3 cards, and none of them have like the floral embellishment on it. They're all just sentiments, and I only have these 3 pieces left. So I'm going to kind of see how each of these looks. Okay, so I have all of these with their coordinating color for the back. What I'm going to do now is go through and decide what color mat I want it to be on and to separate those out. So again, for my matte colors, I have that kind of just very off-white, kind of the eggshell. It's called Natural Ice. And I'm going to have the gray, and I'm going to have a pink. So I'm going to stack those up there. Alright, those are all separated now, so I'm going to go ahead and mat the little cards, or the sentiment cards. Now some of them, like you'll see here on this one, they did have just a slight border from when I cut them down to 3x4. So some of them I will need to trim that off, that excess. But that's it, so I'm going to go ahead and just mat these up. Here is one of the cards. It has been adhered to the matte color and trimmed out with the even border. So there's kind of what that card will look like. And I'll go ahead and just continue that with the rest of these. Alright, the next thing I'm going to do, I grabbed 6 pieces of the Natural Ice cardstock. I'm just going to cut those in half lengthways, and then I will fold them to be card bases. So I'll do that off camera, and I'll be back in just a little bit. All of my card bases are ready to go ahead and start putting together. I think I'm going to go ahead and on the top piece, I'm going to use some of my foam rectangles that I bought at the Dollar Tree to just pop this up off the card, and that will just give it some dimension. I know I've shared these before, but this is just a roll of foam. They're rectangles, and it was only $1, and I've already used some of these. They hold really well, and they're easy to use, and they're cheap. So if you have a Dollar Tree near you and like to use foam squares, I would recommend going to get some of this. I'm going to start by adhering the background pattern paper to the card base. And then I'm going to use some of the foam squares just on the back of this sentiment piece. And I'm just centering that in there just as best as I can by eyeballing it. And one of the cards is complete, I think. My plan is to go ahead and just put them all together and then see if some of the ones that only have the sentiments, that there's no artwork on it, see if I need to add something like maybe some sequins, or maybe I'll fussy cut some flowers from the leftover pattern paper from this one, you know, if I can make something work. Now I have the basic cards done, and I could keep these how they were and they would be just fine. But some of the cards that are just sentiments, they still have quite a bit of white space. So what I'm going to do is use some of the scraps from cutting down the pattern paper. So I have like these scraps. I'm going to see if I can use these in some way to decorate just some of that white space. So I'm going to go ahead and select the ones that I'm going to add stuff to. Okay, I'm going to see what I can add to these 4 cards here. But the ones that have the multicolored floral background, I'm going to see if I can use the other background in some way just to bring out more of that pink and more of the gold foil. The first way that I'm going to add some more detail to these cards is going to be using one of my new favorite tools. It is a Stampin' Up! Tag punch. I will find the real name and link it for you below. But what this does is it puts that fishtail notch in pieces of paper that are either 1, 1.5, or 2 inches wide. So what I've done is cut a piece of the pink floral paper down to 1 inch, and I'm going to punch both sides of that into a fishtail. And if you've watched any Christy Marcotte videos, she is a YouTuber who frequently makes lots of cards from 1 6x6 paper pad. She uses a lot of like banners like this on the edges of some of her cards, and I just really like that. So that's all I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a little one and try it up here. See how that adds just a little something. It brings in that other pattern paper and takes away some of that white space. I think I might try something different on this one. For this next one, because this isn't the right size, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a piece, same idea though, still that same fishtail banner. I'm going to cut a piece of this with my die cut machine. And I like that size much better. For the last two cards, again, I'm going to see if I can incorporate this pattern paper in some way. I think for this one I'm going to do the same thing where I cut it down to 1 inch wide and then punch it. And last but not least, I have this fourth one. And I think I'm just gonna leave it alone. I don't really like any way that I can place these pieces, so I'm gonna leave it as is. And so now I have 12 cards that are ready to go. I may give them away as a set. I'm not sure yet, but let's go ahead and take one last look at these. Thank you so much for joining me today as I made this little card set. If you enjoyed the video, I hope you'll give it a thumbs up. If you're new to my channel and you think you might like to see more of what I create, I hope you'll hit the subscribe button below. And as always, if you're a regular viewer, a subscriber, thank you for stopping back by. I hope you're all having a crafty day.